All right, welcome back. So let's talk about some links to other natural hazards from impacts. Kind of touched on it a little bit when talking about the Chicxulub impact, but tsunamis, definitely, if the impact is anywhere near water, whether it's small or extremely massive asteroid. Wildfires from ejected material or heat of the impact, even if it's an airburst itself. Impact or earthquakes from impact shock waves, typically only if we're hitting the earth. So mass wasting, obviously landslides, moving earth material from either the earthquakes or from the impact event itself. Climate change from debris going up into the atmosphere, altering the climate or blocking out the sun. And then we can actually induce volcanic eruptions. If you hit something on the earth hard enough and big enough, it's going to melt the crust, fracture the crust, cause instability in the mantle, and that might spew forth magma and lava to the surface. So it could trigger volcanic eruptions. Just all the bests of all the hazards. So that's really the end of this section. So let's go ahead and jump into another section and talk about impacts on society. I know it's a pun. So this is just I think this is another just one slider, but it's interesting. So people also ask me, well, what are the odds of dying from an impact event or being hit by something and dying? Well, it's not the odds are not as good as you might think. Well, so let's just run down the odds of dying from certain things. Unfortunately, the odds of dying from cancer are 1 in 3. If you get 1 in 3 people are gonna die from cancer. It's an unfortunate thing. Car crash, about 1 in 100 people die from car crashes. 1 in 250 people die from fires. About 1 in 1,000 people die from murder. About 1 in every 20,000 people around the world die from earthquakes. That number is much different in the U.S., but if we average it around all of humanity, about 1 in 20,000 people die from an earthquake, which is still a lot. About 1 in 60,000 people die from tornadoes. About 1 in 77,000 people die in an elevator accident. So dying in a tornado and elevator is pretty close. In fact, but you're more likely to die in an elevator accident than to die in a volcanic eruption. 1 in 80,000 people. Floods, 1 in 118,000 people. Lightning, 1 in 135,000 people. And that's actually better odds than dying from a mass wasting event. 1 in 160,000 people. 1 out of every 260,000 people die from dog attacks. 1 in 500,000 people have died from tsunamis. So some of these things aren't quite what we think. A plane crash. 1 in 5 million people die in a plane crash. So somewhat rare. Even rarer is shark attack. 1 in 8 million people die from a shark attack. And this isn't an odds of death. I don't know, maybe it'll give you a heart attack, but winning the Powerball, your odds of winning the Powerball are 1 in 195 million. So if you play the lottery, good for you. I hope you win. But the odds of winning the Powerball, you would be in 39 plane crashes before you win the Powerball. You would be in about 20, you'd be eaten by 25 sharks before you'd win the Powerball. What I'm trying to say is the odds of winning the Powerball lottery aren't that good. People do, I know. Well, someone does, eventually, every once in a while. The odds are not in your favor. Just to show you odds of things. But what about dying from a meteorite or asteroid impact? Where does that come in? You don't hear about it too often. But actually, the odds of dying from a meteorite or an asteroid impact actually fall somewhere between a tsunami and a plane crash. So if you're scared of planes, you should be probably more scared of meteorites and asteroid impacts. You have a much more likelihood of dying from one of those events than a plane crash, a shark attack, or even coming close to winning the Powerball. So you would get here. Let me run the quick numbers for you here. So let me do a little math. See, 195 million divided by 700,000. Okay, so you are more likely to get hit and die from 279 meteorite or asteroid impacts than you would the chance of winning the Powerball. Again, what I'm saying is the odds of winning the Powerball aren't good. But what I'm also saying is that the odds of dying from a meteorite or asteroid impact is actually rather high. The reason being, it doesn't happen often. In fact, only a handful of people in recorded history have died. But the reason the odds are kind of better than plane crash, shark attack, and winning the Powerball is that it's also considering, well, if a big planet killer came along, which they do every so often, and hit the Earth, that means everyone's going to die all at once. And when you factor that in, the odds of dying from a meteorite or asteroid impact actually become kind of scary. Yeah. So dying in a plane crash, you actually have a better chance of getting hit with 7 meteorites. Being killed by a shark, you actually have a better chance of being hit with 11 meteorites. And like I said, you have a better chance of getting hit and killed by 278 meteorites than you do of winning the Powerball. But it does happen. In all of recorded history, there has been, as far as documented deaths directly related to some sort of airburst or impact, there's actually only been one. I told you about the 3 that died from the Tunguska airburst event. They weren't still quite sure if it was the event itself that killed them. So that's not necessarily official documented. There's only been one person in all of recorded history that has died from an impact. But again, if you consider if there was a massive impact and how that would basically kill all, however many people are on Earth right now, 6-7 billion of them, that really lowers the odds. So this one documented death happened in 1888 in Turkey, and it was found in the archives of Turkey. There was a falling meteorite hit and killed one man in Iraq. Excuse me, I misspoke. So the event was in Iraq, but they found the documents in Turkey. There was no meteorite or rock found to verify the report. Apparently there was one, but the researchers couldn't find where that thing was at. But the documents surrounding the event were extremely convincing. So there's been one documented death in all of recorded history. The only confirmed victim of a meteorite strike in which we had the material was that woman I showed you from Alabama, Ann Hodges, who was napping on her couch in the 1950s. The meteorite fell through the roof, hit her hip. It was retrieved, confirmed to be extraterrestrial in origin. Obviously, she survived, but not without a very massive bruise on her hip. So you can see the detective, the police officer, is holding the actual material. So this is the only person who's not only documented, but we actually have the thing. It didn't kill her, it just caused a pretty nasty bruise. I don't know if I'd ever be able to nap again, knowing that just randomly something from space could just come through my house and pop me on the hip. So we just knocked out a couple of sections. So when we come back, let's talk about how we would minimize the hazards associated with impact. There's some cool new sciencey stuff. There's some stuff of movies, some stuff you might not quite know about on ways we can maybe impact the hazard or minimize the hazard that is impact events. Pause here. See you back in a second.